Hey folks, welcome to my channel. I was just looking over my Play Guitar Like the Beatles, and this is a magazine I've had for well over 60 years now, and it's from 1964. I was 9, and the Beatles came onto the scene in America, and people my age and a little older, we became Beatle fans. So this is a guitar book that I learned to play guitar on, and basically it's got some chord diagrams at the very beginning of the book. As such, chord diagrams with open chords, and it's got some tablature. It's not even tablature, it's actually, notes on a staff, notes, just notes. So they have rhythm patterns for rhythm guitars, lead notes for the lead guitarist, and they even have a section here, 4-string electric bass guitar. So this is how, back in the dinosaur days, that we learned how to play guitar. And today it's a whole different ball game, and if I had to do it over again, this is probably what I would recommend to anybody learning to play guitar today. This is what I would suggest. And number one, there's a lot of stuff out on the internet, especially with YouTube and other outlets, to learn guitar. Back in my time when I was learning, we had books like Play Guitar Like the Beatles, and also we had the needle drop on the record, so we could get to that exact spot in the song and listen to it over and over. Today, because of technology and advancements, it's a lot easier to learn how to play a guitar. It's a lot easier, and there's a lot of information out there, and that's probably sometimes a problem with the information. There is so much out there in YouTube, and you have to be able to look at the content that's in YouTube, and you have to decide, is this working for you? That's the first thing, because there's a lot out there. There's a lot of information. You probably get information overload. It's easy to get information overload. So my suggestion would be to look at some of the content that you find about playing guitar on YouTube, and get a variety of people to look at. If you're looking at somebody on YouTube about playing guitar or a lesson, if you're not making that connection with that person, move on to the next one, because life is short, and you've got to be able to find a provider that you can understand what they're putting down. And I'm only going to recommend 4 that I've seen on YouTube for the past several years that I think are pretty good. And I know I can pick up stuff from these 4, and I think you can too. But there's a wide range of people out there, and they're good. The content is good on YouTube. You find a lot of good content. But just because it's good content doesn't mean that you're going to be able to identify with it or learn from it. So that's one of the first things you have to do, is get some exposure to the YouTube channels out there that are teaching guitar, and look at them, and try to make a decision. Are you getting anything from this? If you are, continue on, and if you're not, go to the next one. So I'm going to recommend 4 providers that you'll find on YouTube, and you'll also find on their own websites. The first one is Marty Music. Marty's been around for a long time. He's got a lot of good content. He's relatable. He can tell you a story. He can explain things in a real simple level. So if you're a new guitar player, I would recommend Marty Music or Marty Schwartz for a beginner. Another good beginning teacher is Justin Sanderco. So Guitar by Justin, that's another. He's excellent. He has some good courses out there. He's easy to follow along. So as far as a beginner guitar player, I would probably recommend taking a look at Marty Schwartz and Justin Sanderco. Those are, in my opinion, 2 of the better ones. And again, there are many more out there, and I'm sorry if I didn't mention you, but time is short. As far as if you're an intermediate player, I think I would recommend Eric Haugen and Paul David. Those are people I've been following, and they have a lot of good content. They're pretty good. They're good instrument guitar player. They're great, and it's a little bit more advanced. And I would probably get a little bit of experience under your belt before you go trying to tackle some of the stuff they're putting down. But for intermediate players, I would take a look at Eric Haugen and Paul David. Great content on their channels, so check them out. I'll put a link to their channels in the description. Now, one of the things that I would suggest is to learn at your own pace, but you have to have a pace. If you're only going to pick up the guitar once on a weekend or for 20 minutes on a Sunday afternoon, you're never going to learn guitar that way. So you have to develop your own pace. And one of the things I would say as far as setting a pace, I think it's important to practice every day. And even if it's only 10 or 15 minutes, 10 or 15 minutes every day is better than trying to do it in 2 hours on a weekend, because the daily practice is something that will help you as far as developing the skills that you need to play guitar. And that leads into how often should you practice and how long. Me, I would recommend, again, 15 to 20 minutes a day and every day. It's just something that you want to do it every day. And I was watching an interview once, and somebody asked B.B. King, you must practice 5-6 hours a day. And B.B. King's response was, I think he looked at the person like he was crazy, and he was telling the guy, listen, I'm out here on the road playing 5 or 6 nights a day, a week. Why would I practice that long? So if you're B.B. King, you don't need to practice, 5 or 6 days a week, because obviously you've transcended that level. Another thing that I found interesting, I was watching an interview with Eric Clapton once, and somebody handed him a guitar and said, can you show us? And Eric looked shocked, like, you handed me, and he said at the interview, I haven't played in about 3 weeks, and I'm rusty. And so Eric declined. He's like, no, I'll pass right now. So that showed me that even the greats, they don't practice every day because they've already reached their level. But I haven't reached that level yet. You probably, if you're watching this, you haven't reached that level yet. So I think every day is probably a good thing to do. And when you practice, you've got to be able to spend time on the practical aspects of playing guitar as well as theory. And that's why I suggested the 4 teachers that you could likely find on YouTube, because when you practice, you're combining the physical part of playing a guitar with the knowledge of where the notes are, what makes a chord, and what an interval is. So you have to have some theory as well, because you have to know what to practice. So you've got 2 things that you're trying to accomplish when you're playing guitar, or when you're learning guitar. You're learning how to physically work the guitar, how to hold it, how to make a chord, how to make a run or a scale. That's what you're doing. So that's the practical, developing your touch, your dynamics, learning some of the techniques, learning how to do a hammer-on or a pull-off, or learning how to slide, or learning how to bend a note. So those are all the practical things that you actually physically need to practice. But in addition to that, you have to have some understanding of theory, and that's important as well. Now for theory, basically everybody should know intervals. If you're learning guitar, you should know what an interval is, and you should know the different intervals. You need to know where the notes are on the guitar. You need to know the difference between a diatonic scale and a chromatic scale. And you also have to develop your ear. You have to be able to, hear the difference between a minor chord and a major chord. And those are some of the challenges, and that's why we have to practice. And, you're exercising your fingers when you practice. You're building muscle memory. You're building some familiarity, and those are important things. But when you get the theory too, it may seem boring. And again, I'm not asking you to enroll in Berklee College of Music to get that kind of understanding, which it would be great if you could. But probably 99% of the guitar players that you see out there, and even some of your guitar heroes, do not have that level of understanding or mastery of guitar theory. So you don't need a lot of theory, but you do need some. And practicing needs to be, you need to have a focus. So when you practice the guitar, you need to set a goal. Now, one thing about setting goals is, and any goal, no matter what it is, they tell you to make sure your goal is realistic. So your realistic goal would not be to play like an advanced player in 3 weeks, because realistically, that's not going to happen. But what is realistic is to choose an aspect of learning the guitar that you feel is where you need to learn at that point, and learn that and focus on that and spend as much time as you need to focusing on that. So most guitar players at the beginning, they're learning open chords, or cowboy chords as we call them. And then, after you master some of the chord positions, the basic C, A, D, D minor, simple open chords. Once you get that down, your next thing is to actually get to the point where you're changing chords fluidly. And that takes practice. And that takes, developing your physical, practical skills on playing guitar. So you have to focus on what you're going to practice. Now, for most people, as I said, they're learning basic cowboy chords or open chords, and then they're learning how to change between chords, and then they may learn some simple scales, whether it's a pentatonic scale, a major or minor scale, or the chromatic scale. And then also, with all that learning of the different chords and the scales, the simple chords and the scales, you begin to understand where the notes are. And that's critical as well. You need to know where the notes are on the guitar. And none of this has to be complicated. It can be very simply done in a very simple way, and just take it a piece at a time. So it's really, don't let the theory scare you away, and don't avoid the practical experience as well. So that's something that needs to be done. Now, me personally, I try to practice on a daily basis. Some days I don't practice because of time commitments, or I'm not available. Today I'm not playing because I have a little arthritis in the thumb and it's acting up today. So I'm not playing guitar today. I have rehearsal tomorrow, and I'll be playing with another musician tomorrow. So, but I try to practice every day. It's critical, and it keeps my skill set up. And also, I'm not where I want to be yet. And I probably never will be where I want to be, but I'm going to keep practicing. And that's why practice is important, whether you're a beginner, an intermediate, or an advanced player. Practice is critical. And sometimes in that practice, you have to be focused with your practice. It has to be focused. You have to set a goal. What is it you want to learn today? And what are you going to do with that? And how are you going to develop that? And where are you going to go from there? So focus, developing goals, and the focus of what you're going to practice is critical. If you're practicing scales for 15 minutes and then you decide to switch to playing chord positions or learning bar chords or playing arpeggios, and if you start getting way out there with other areas of influence, or you're looking at other teachers on the internet and you're getting other information and you're jumping around, that's going to do you a disservice. And that's why I caution you with learning guitar from the YouTube, because YouTube is a wonderful resource for learning guitar, but I caution you, just set up your goals and your focus and get the information you need from YouTube concerning what you want to learn and what your focus is, and that'll serve you better than just being all over the board. So that's one suggestion that I would make about that. The second thing is you also have to, I practice about maybe 10 or 15 minutes a day, but I also spend an equal amount of time doing what we call noodling. Now, if you're not familiar with the term noodling, noodling is what guitar players call messing around on the guitar. And noodling is also a valuable thing to do with the guitar, because when you learn chords and you learn scales and you begin to learn some techniques, then you put them into practice by doing some messing around or noodling. And noodling is a good way to spark some creative juices. It's when you're noodling that you say, oh, that sounds good. Or it may cause you to think, well, if I did this and this happened, it kind of brings you around. So that messing around is not a waste of time. Noodling is not a waste of time. If that's all you're doing, maybe then it's a waste of time. But if you get some solid, goal-focused practice, and then also develop your noodling style, and noodling can be done sitting on the couch with the television on, because again, by noodling, you're developing your practical skills, you're putting into application some of the theory that you're learning, and by doing those two things in an unstructured, messing about way, it helps to develop some creativity. And you might come up with a melody line that you think would be good for a song, and also you might come across with a chord that you think sounds really interesting, or it might remind you of another song. So that's useful too. So noodling is not to be done solely for practice, but it's something that you want to realize that there's a benefit to noodling, but there's also a benefit to developing your practical skills and your theory. So those are some of the things that I would do differently as a beginner guitarist. And also, I would also mention, don't get frustrated. Learning guitar is not an overnight process. It's not something, that you can, develop really quick, and you're going to get frustrated. I know, I did, and every guitarist out there has probably been frustrated. And when you get frustrated, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and go at it again. Now, frustration is one thing, but if you're not in the mood to play, I would recommend don't play. Don't force yourself to practice. You need to practice, you need to develop your skills, but don't force yourself. There's been times when I try to force myself. I want to learn this song, and I'll pick up my guitar and I sound crappy, and because I'm just not feeling it, and nothing's working right. My hands aren't working right. I don't sound right. I don't feel right about it. So I've learned enough in my own experience, when I get in that mode, and it's not frequently, but when I get into a mode where I don't want to play guitar, I don't play guitar. And I recommend that you do the same. So, because when you pick up the guitar to play, you should be learning something and you should be having fun at it. And finally, what I want to say about learning guitars, learning how to play guitar, whether you're playing acoustic guitar or electric guitar, learn songs. That's critical. And that's something that I've always struggled with as a player, is, I've learned basic parts of a song, or I've learned a couple of opening riffs, or I've learned how to play a chord on a song, or I learned the chorus of a song, and that's never served me well. What serves me well is, if I'm learning a song, is learning the song from the beginning all the way through the end. And sometimes it helps when you're playing with another musician, but even if you're not playing with another musician, there's a lot of resources out there on the internet. You can download some PDFs of some chord charts. You've got ample music out there that's in the streaming stratosphere that you can listen to. So, but that's one thing that I would say, when you add on the fact that you need to get practical with your feeling of the guitars and handling the guitar, and learning the theory, you also need to learn how to play a song. And you need to learn how to play it from the beginning to the end. And sometimes when you're playing a whole song, you might get the beginning down, or you might know the chorus and you nail it, but then you find a bridge that's throwing you off a little bit, or some chord that you've never played before is throwing you off. Well, learning the song will get you over that hump if you're persistent. And that's where persistence comes from, is from learning the song. So that's what I would recommend. So anyways, thanks for watching, thanks for listening. I hope you get something from this, and please let me know what your comments are. I'll interact with you through comments. I answer most of the comments that I get, and you can email me, send me a comment, but hope you get something from this. I'm just saying how I would do it if I was doing it all over again. So thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe and follow along, and until next time.